I've noticed over time that I take some deviation from what it means to give an EEBB Colloquium presentation. Some brainstorming of ideas, dissertation distractions, a bit of storytelling, and now whatever this is. Because she's done it again, but there's no need for consternation, just sit back and relax. I'm going to wrap my dissertation. No beatboxing, please, because I need my concentration to keep track of the lines as I wrap my dissertation. Many people to thank, some funding sources too, all helping me out to do what I do. So, see if I can reach me. It all started my first year when I took Pop and Com and learned about the LDG, a global phenomenon. It's a pattern of species richness from the tropics to the poles, and with every group we survey, the pattern unfolds. In vascular plants, in mammals and birds, in amphibians, and in marine bivalves. Yep, there we go. All right. There are exceptions, of course, to this global trend, gymnosperms and mosses and some of their friends. Some exceptions, it turns out, were due to lack of data, like in ichneumoniid wasps, we only found out later. That the trend we thought we knew was based on just a small handful of the species that exist with more tropical samples. What leads to this trend? What's driving this pattern? There are dozens of hypotheses that we still can't agree on. Evolutionary ones, ecological too, mid-domain hypotheses of a more neutral hue. There's one that brings together multiple components, and that's the BIH was gaining ground, for it could explain the steepness of the slope of species richness gain. In the north, like Game of Thrones, they're all like winter is coming, and in the south, like Hunger Games, even the Red Queen is running. And in this hypothesis was found the attraction for every lichen is a biotic interaction. So now we begin my PhD saga by looking at some herbarium data. And you can see clearly the pattern's not the same here when we go north versus south from the equator. But we found when we plotted the number of records, they followed a disturbingly similar pattern. So we ran a rarefaction in order to determine species richness if sampling effort was even. You see now that they follow, though the hemispheres are different, more of a classic latitudinal gradient. When considering factors that could be driving this, land area and temperature are correlated with richness. But these are collections data, subject to biases. What happens if I go out and sample about 900 trees? So on to chapter 2 we go, the field sampling component, to visit 9 sites along the latitudinal gradient. I would be exaggerating to say field work was a breeze, but here's a latitudinal gradient of Klara staring at trees. 100 trees were sampled at every site I went to, yielding over 4,000 lichen samples, so you know, just a few. And I'm still keying out the last few little stacks, but so far it seems the field data follows a similar track. The richness I show here is just the main fungal partner. But lichens are composites, there's so much more going on here. Lichens are cryptic, but ubiquitous, a fungus and an alga in symbiosis. It turns out there's a third partner, and maybe even more. There's so much more to lichens than what we thought before. Are partnerships consistent under different conditions, or does specificity too follow a latitudinal gradient? Time to go to the lab to get some DNA and find the story of the partnerships at play. For chapter 3, alas, we're still waiting on the data, so the big wrap for this section will have to be filled in later. In the meantime, some data from my undergrad Serena about the specificity of the third lichen partner. Turns out it's pretty fickle as lichen partnerships go. It might end up that abundance plays a more important role. In my 6th and final year, in the middle of winter, I said, what the heck, let's add another chapter. So off to Costa Rica, to Las Cruces Station, to look at different treatments of forest restoration. Lichens are known indicators of air quality. Can they also tell us about forest continuity? I did a visual survey of 500 more trees to assess the differences in lichen communities. Across restoration types of a tropical forest, islands and plantations, and also control plots. I'm still analyzing communities, but as for species richness patterns, non-planted recruits and open air seems to be what matters. It's taken me 6 years, but hey, nobody's counting, with the piles of data and the pressure surmounting. But the journey overall has been a good one, and I can certainly say I've had a lot of fun. Now I'm coming to a close and turn it over to the room. So I'll end my dissertation just like this. Boom.